This session was created in response to administrator feedback about some struggles with obtaining the relevant data for closeout forms. We'll be covering how to obtain relevant data for the completion of Closeout Form 2. This is the closeout form that we get the most questions on, and while the form fields themselves are pretty straightforward, as Amy already mentioned, generating the data is not always. We don't expect everyone to be experts on completing this form by the end of the session, but we do hope that the information provides some additional context surrounding how to find and use the necessary data, in addition to leaving you with some formulas and instructions to come back to and reference for future project closeouts. Aside from industrial infrastructure projects, which require Form ED1, Form 2 is required for all projects regardless of national objective. The purpose of this form is to obtain the LMI breakdown data for mandatory HUD reporting. Chris already covered how to fill out this form. Now we're covering where the data necessary to complete the form comes from. The process we're showing you for closeout data is the same process used for generating application data. At the end of the project, if the data was reported correctly on the CDBG application and no scope changes affecting the service area occurred, please save yourself some time by just copying that application data to the closeout forms. The data sources used to complete Form 2 vary depending on the type of project. Factors such as the national objective used and whether a survey was conducted will play a role in determining which LMI data to use. For projects meeting the LMI limited clientele national objective under presumed benefit, we would use option 1, which is the HUD presumed benefit guidance. For projects meeting the LMI national objective using survey data, we'll use the survey data obtained at the time of application. For all other projects, we'll use American Community Survey data from the census. Option 1 is relevant when a project meets the LMI limited clientele national objective through presumed benefit. For presumed benefit activities, HUD has identified the income categories that we can assume certain populations fit in. For reporting purposes, we can assume that abused children and homeless persons fall into the very low income category. Battered spouses, severely disabled adults, illiterate adults, persons with AIDS, migrant farm workers, and elderly populations benefiting from a non-center-based project can be assumed to fall into the low-income category. And last, nature and location activities and elderly populations benefiting from center-based activities fall into the moderate income category. To fill out Form 2, we would like you to list the total number of beneficiaries under the appropriate category. If a project serves a combination of these groups, we would need to identify the number in each group and report those numbers under the appropriate income levels on Form 2. Here's an example of Form 2 for a project that involved the construction of a homeless shelter. Due to the nature of the project, we can reasonably assume that all beneficiaries of this project are homeless persons. The shelter houses 40 individuals at the time of closeout. Based on HUD's guidance, homeless persons are considered to have very low income, so we report 40 beneficiaries in the very low column and 0 beneficiaries in the moderate column and low column. Option 2 applies when meeting the LMI national objective via survey. First, we need to tally the income data from surveys. On the screen is a snip of our survey template that would have been used during the pre-application phase to determine LMI status. We'll take a look at the reported income and family size. This will tell us how many persons fall into each of the LMI breakdown categories for this household. Income above column C refers to non-LMI persons. Income between columns B and C refers to persons with moderate income or the 50 to 80% area median income range. Income between columns A and B refers to persons with low income or that 30 to 50% AMI range. And income below column A refers to persons with very low income or that 0 to 30% AMI range. We would need to go through each survey response to get our breakdown totals for the survey population. Once we have our survey totals, we move to extrapolation. Since LMI surveys represent only a sample of the service area, we have to extrapolate survey data in order to generate data for the entire population. We're essentially just working with ratios here. To obtain the extrapolated data field, we multiply the service area population listed on the funding approval by the survey data field, and then divide by the number of survey responses. For this example, let's assume that we're trying to determine the total number of low-income beneficiaries to report on Form 2. We tallied the surveys and note that 50 respondents reported low income. We received a total of 250 survey responses, and the total service area population for the project listed on the funding approval is 10,000. To determine the total beneficiaries, we multiply the total population of 10,000 by the 50 survey respondents with low income, and then divide by the 250 survey responses to produce 2,000 as the total beneficiaries with low income. You can do all of this by hand if you like, but to reduce errors, we do recommend creating an Excel sheet with this formula built in so that you don't have to do the math for every closeout, but rather just enter the relevant data and let Excel do the work for you. We do have sample extrapolation sheets available. You can request them, and if that's something that everyone's interested in, we can potentially post those to our website as well. Option 3 relates to all other projects and is the most common. We'll utilize the HUD LMI data and Census Table B06012. Let's cover how to find Census Table B06012 first. To begin, we'll navigate to the Census website. The QR code is linked here, or you can navigate to data.census.gov. This will also be the first result if you just Google Explore Census. One more? You got it? Here's what the site looks like. There are a variety of ways to navigate to the table we need, so please do whatever works best for you. I'm going to show you one option. For Form 2 data, we need to take a look at poverty data, which can be found in Table B06012. We'll first click in the search field and type in the name of the table we're looking for. The result pops up here, and we see that there are 27 product options for this table. We'll go ahead and expand this list in order to select the relevant year. The selected year should line up with the HUD LMI data in effect at the time of application. For example, if the 2016 through 2020 HUD LMI data was in effect at the time of application, we'd use the 2020 version of Table B06012. We've selected the relevant year for the project we're reporting on, so now we use the GEOS icon to navigate to the project service area. For most projects, you'll end up selecting a county or a place. There are also breakdowns available for census tracts, block groups, and other geographical boundaries. I just selected a random location for this example. Once we've narrowed our search down, we're focused on this field labeled below 100% of the poverty level. Below 100% of the poverty level is the same as the number of persons with very low income or income below 30% AMI. For this example, the number of beneficiaries with income below 100% of the poverty level is 274. So we'll place 274 in the very low income column of Form 2. That's all we need from this table B06012, so next we'll hop on over to the HUD LMI data. There are two ways to view HUD LMI data. The first option is the LMI mapping tool. This is based on data from the 2016 through 2020 American Community Survey. This tool is especially useful when a project's service area is made up of a few specific census tracts or block groups. Instructions are built into the tool itself, so we won't go over this in detail today, but please feel free to reach out to us for assistance if you run into any issues navigating the tool. The second option is the LMI spreadsheets, and this is my preferred option when I'm verifying closeout data. They're a bit simpler to navigate, and I find it easier to copy data if extrapolation is needed. It's also a good idea to understand how to use these tables because when HUD updates the LMI data every 5 years, these tables are typically released before the LMI mapping tool is updated. These QR codes link to the 2016 through 2020 HUD LMI data, but previous versions are also available on HUD's website and linked in the applicable application guidelines. If the project benefits an entire city, township, or county, you'll use the table for local governments. If the project benefits only certain census tracts, use the table for block groups. Here's what the local government summaries version of the LMI spreadsheet looks like. We'll take a closer look at the fields highlighted on the screen here: the low, low mod middle, low mod universal, and low mod percent. These are the same fields that would have appeared on the HUD LMI mapping tool if we had gone the other route. So let's explain these HUD LMI data fields. Low refers to the total number of persons with income between 0 and 50% AMI. Low mod refers to the total number of persons with income between 0 and 80% AMI. LMMI is low mod middle income, and that stands for the total number of persons with income between 0 and 120% AMI. This field is listed for some other HUD programs, but not applicable to regular CDBG projects, so we can ignore it for the purpose of completing Form 2. Low mod universal refers to the total population of the area, and low mod percent refers to the percentage of the population with income below 80% AMI. Notice that HUD does not provide the 0 to 30% income range that is required to be reported on Form 2 and onto HUD. That's why we referenced Census Table B06012 earlier. Additionally, note that for each field, the income range begins at 0. For example, the low mod field ranges from 0 to 80%, meaning the field includes data for moderate income persons, low income persons, and very low income persons. However, HUD requires that we report on each income range separately. This means we'll have to do a bit of math to reach the numbers we need for Form 2. Once we've pulled our numbers from Census Table B06012 and the HUD LMI data, we'll sort of work backwards to obtain the necessary reporting data. In this example, let's assume Table B06012 showed 274 as the number of persons with income below the poverty level. Additionally, we'll assume that the HUD LMI data showed 510 persons with income below 50% AMI, 900 persons with income below 80% AMI, 1,885 total beneficiaries, and an LMI percentage of 47.75%. We've already used the poverty data from Table B06012 to fill in the very low income category on Form 2. Recall that the low income number from the HUD LMI data includes all persons with income below 50% AMI, but Closeout Form 2 asks for the number of persons with income between 30 and 50% AMI. In order to determine the low income range for Form 2, we subtract Table B06012's very low income number from HUD's low income number. So we have 510 minus 274, which gives us 236 low-income beneficiaries. We determine the low mod number for Form 2 in a similar fashion. From the HUD LMI data, we take the number of low mod income persons and subtract the number of low-income persons. So we have 900 minus 510, giving us 390 moderate income beneficiaries. The total LMI beneficiaries comes directly from the HUD LMI data. Remember that the low mod number on the HUD data includes all LMI beneficiaries. The LMI percentage also comes directly from the HUD LMI data. And the total number of beneficiaries comes directly from the HUD LMI data. Next, we'll check our work. If we've done the math correctly, the LMI breakdown should sum to the total LMI beneficiaries. So here we have 390 plus 236 plus 274, which gives us 900 total LMI beneficiaries. That's what the HUD LMI data showed, so we're good on that one. Also, if we've pulled the right numbers from the HUD data, the total LMI beneficiaries divided by the total beneficiaries should equal the LMI percentage. Here we have 900 divided by 1,885, which does give us approximately 47.75%. While HUD does use census data to generate the LMI data, there are still some cases in which the total population listed on the census data differs from the total population listed on the HUD LMI data. This could happen when pulling data for any of the closeout forms, not just Form 2. If this occurs, we would have to extrapolate the census data according to the population provided by HUD, just like we did earlier when we extrapolated survey data to represent the entire service area population. In this case, we would take the total population as provided by HUD times the census data field, and then divide by the total population as provided by the census data.